You can change your hair or what you wear, but no matter what you do, you're still you. Welcome back to the channel, lads and ladies, and again, you may hear some Daniel Tiger's neighborhood in the background. Do not be alarmed. A baby lives in my house. But let's carry on. Today, I wasn't planning to do a devblog coverage on this one, but two things stood out to me. One is the name. This is the Russian light cruiser, the Krispy Kreme. So how could you not? All weapons fire at will. So let's read through this really quickly. Krasny Krym is the lead ship of the Svetlana class light cruiser, which was laid down for the Imperial Russian Navy just prior to the outbreak of World War I. Despite closely... This is a World War I ship, guys. Little Steamboat Willie here. Despite closely resembling the Krasny Kavkaz, Krasny Krym, sorry for the accent, I tried, will offer its future captains some new tactical options with its introduction in the forthcoming War Thunder Update 1.85. And just as a brief examination of what those options will be, we're talking high fire rate and lots of armor. So this will have cannons that can rival any destroyer, although as a World War I era battle craft, I almost said battleship, I almost said warship, we'll call it a warship. As a World War I era craft, it's probably not going to have anything useful in the way of anti-aircraft weaponry, so that still gives destroyers a strong role in the game, especially ships like the Fletcher. We've talked about that before. So this really seems to be a coagulation of the meta when it comes to naval. The larger craft appear to be, for obvious reasons, much more survivable and also better at dishing out damage to other large craft, whereas destroyers have some very effective secondary guns for rapid-fire gunning down of light craft. They have rapid-fire main guns that are useful both against aircraft with radar fuse high explosive and delay fuse high explosive being the most effective way to shoot down aircraft at this point. And so this really does seem to be a further development of the meta of naval forces, and I look forward to seeing how it works out. Maybe I should start working on my Soviet line of ships. Okay. Briefly, a lighter version of the already familiar Krasny Kavkaz light cruiser equipped with smaller caliber yet more numerous main guns and fewer secondary armaments. So TLDR, you can spam lower caliber rounds, or lower caliber main cannon rounds. So Modaka, less kaboom boom, capiche? In War Thunder, Krasny Krym will become available to all captains as a new addition to the Soviet light cruiser roster with the release of the upcoming update 1.85. There's so much coming with this update, even some more things for naval. Being essentially two sister classes, Krasny Krym not only resembles Kavkaz closely in terms of looks, but also in other aspects such as maneuverability and protection. And if you're wondering why all of these USSR vehicles are called Krasny this or that, it's because Krasny, if I'm correct, is the Soviet word for, or the Soviet word, my apologies, the Russian word for red. And being that they're known as the Reds, and they love to paint everything red, calling something Krasny this or that is not such a surprise. This is, after all, a form of nationalism. And you say, but it was socialism. It wasn't real socialism. It was a far cry from what socialism actually was. Interesting fact, to diverge completely from the topic. Socialism did exist in areas for a while in a more true form during the communist revolution in Russia, but the problem with socialism immediately arose, and that is it's practically impossible to organize anything if you really listen to everyone. Wow. That's coming right back down to War Thunder, isn't it? So you have to have strong central leadership to make any government work, and what you hope for is the central leadership that really has the best interests of the people in mind. What they got was Stalin. So, moving on. Krasny Krym is like Kafkaz. However, it's slower and it has some thick armor here, so let's talk about that. Thus, the armor on both ships is almost identical. The main belt armor is cemented 76mm steel. Upper belt armor consists of 25mm homogeneous steel, and the conning tower has 125mm of armor. They say 125mm of armor, but they don't say what it is. Is it a cement steel hybrid as with the lower hull armor, or is it rolled homogeneous? Who's to say? They didn't tell us. As for the speed and firepower, these vessels are quite different. I suppose I could look at the X-ray or the armor view of the Krasny Kafkaz in game now and get a good idea of what they're talking about with that conning tower armor. But that doesn't really change the fact that you will not want to be aiming for the conning tower now. You'll want to... Wow, look at all that superstructure. That's insane. Look at that's just crazy how much higher that's sticking up. Anyway, you'll probably want to shoot this in the ammunition reserves, which should be centrally located under the turrets below the waterline. And again, I wouldn't expect that to be much different than the Kafkaz we have in the game. So when you're looking at how to kill this thing, I would not recommend spamming high explosive. It does have a decent amount of armor and a massive, massive crew. If you're looking to take this down, I would recommend armor-piercing high explosive going into the ammunition supplies, and even then it may take a few direct hits to take it down. So, as for the speed and firepower, these vessels are quite different. Krispy Kreme is slower than its predecessor with only 22 knots. That's 41 kph. And again, this is top speed, saying nothing of acceleration. This is going to be a slow beast compared with the 54 kph of the Krasny Kafkaz. However, firepower is a bit different between the two. Again, unlike the 180mm guns, which are actually less useful on the Krasny Kafkaz, just because they have a very slow fire rate and there's not a large number of them. So you have that alpha strike, but you have less chance of really dealing consistent damage in a prolonged firefight, in my humble opinion. So unlike the 180s found on the Kafkaz, the Krispy Kreme has 130mm main guns. Read that as much higher fire rate, more density of fire. It's just like having, let's say, American 50 cals on your fighter instead of 30mm MK 108s. Does that make sense? There's a few differences, but those of you who've played those different types of guns could see. And to make it even simpler, it's like playing a destroyer against playing another light cruiser, except, why don't I keep it simple? It has destroyer guns. There we go. It has lots and lots of destroyer guns. I am very excited about this. This makes me wish that I had spent some time on the Soviet tree, but maybe the Americans will get something similar. After all, I would hardly expect a new light cruiser to come to only one nation. Gaijin's been pretty good about introducing things in a more balanced way than they have in the past. We'll leave it at that. Anyway, it has side sponson mounted guns. And they say here, oh, if someone suddenly shows up on your other side, you can quickly target them. Yeah, I'd consider that mostly a downside. There's a reason you don't see this kind of setup, because you end up having only half the number of guns pointing toward an enemy most of the time. Hence, deck-mounted turret guns with wide arcs of fire on either side of the vessel have become the norm. Keep in mind, this is a big, bloated World War I ship, and it really makes me look forward to the potential for ships like Dreadnoughts to come into the game, where they're essentially immobile, but man are they tough, and the main guns pack a punch. And it would be possible to balance that, especially considering there will be so many craft, including aircraft, at those battle ratings that can dish out consistent damage, that to have, you know, one shot every minute and a half is not going to sway the tide of a battle too badly. And what would a dreadnought target other than the other enemy dreadnought? And notice I used the singular here. I wouldn't want to see more than one battleship per team in a match. And so maybe two, right? But 3 or 4 even is getting a bit much. If Gaijin ever does introduce battleships, and the community wants it so badly that I know they'll at least give it a try. Maybe we'll see this in April Fools. We'll have to see. I'd love to see a battleship test. Personally, I don't really care if battleships don't come to the game. But again, this is just... we're moving forward here with more vessels of larger size, and they're trying out new dynamics. Notice how with the larger vessels, they're introducing early models, you know, World War I era ships, and they pair off fairly well with late World War II era destroyers. So if they add higher battle ratings of World War II era cruisers, could they pair off nicely with World War I era battleships? I think it would be interesting to see. But keep in mind, that would be a massive commitment of resources. And again, World War I era stuff has a lot less secondary armament on it and a whole lot less aircraft, anti-aircraft armament, so it's something that's much easier to model and to bring into the game. Worthy of a test. I would be very surprised if by next year we don't see a few Dreadnought class ships coming to naval forces. I know that people would really be looking forward to it, and if naval can survive that long and be viable and get the love and not get abandoned, then I think that would really bring in a lot of attention. We got a little bit distracted, didn't we? But a man has to dream, doesn't he? So, let's see. You have a total of 15 primary guns, so you probably have around 7 or 8 guns on target at any given time. Let's see. These are dual mounts here, aren't they? Let's take another close look. So you have a couple of dual mounts that could face the enemy. So you're looking at 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 guns at a time facing toward the enemy. So that is a good number of destroyer caliber guns. And again, your reload rate could be much higher. Well, it will be significantly higher compared with the 180s. And it may even come close to the reload rate of a destroyer, although I would expect it to be a bit lower or a bit longer on account of this is, again, an early model ship. So maybe it'll have the reload rate of those World War I era destroyers that we see earlier on in the destroyer line. We will see. We will see. But this is exciting, even though, as I mentioned, I'm not into the Soviet ships in my research progression. This makes me look forward to that, and especially makes me look forward to see what's going to come alongside this for the other nations. Okay. Secondary in AA is somewhat lighter compared to the Krasny Kavkaz. Only 3 double 100mm dual-purpose cannons. What an interesting secondary setup. 4 single 45s, 10 37mm autocannons, 2 quadruple 12-7 Vickers, and 4 single 12-7 Dishkas. So it does have a decent number of direct fire anti-aircraft guns, but it's really those dual purpose turrets that define the AA capability. of a larger vessel like this, and it should be able to put up a bunch of tracer, but it won't be quite so deadly, especially out to quite the range that a ship like the Fletcher would have. Okay, Krispy Kreme should present a perfect alternative to the Crispy Kafkaz for captains who prefer smaller but faster firing guns without wishing to make any concessions in other departments, except as previously mentioned, maneuverability. Krispy Kreme is already well on its way to player ports and is expected to arrive with the release of the upcoming War Thunder Update 1.85. Stay tuned to the news to find out what else Update 1.85 has in store. Until then, may the seas be calm to you, fellow captains. Yes, live long and prosper. This is obviously going to be a regular tech tree vehicle for the Soviets. I expect to see more regular tech tree light cruisers announced for the other nations. I would be surprised if that's not the case. That's what I'm really excited about. And as of yet, we don't have top tier premiums for naval forces yet, although a case could be made for the Fletcher in the role that it plays, in my humble opinion. I never shut up about that thing. I really enjoy the Fletcher class destroyer, and the premium one is definitely more effective than the regular tech tree variant, although not quite to the level of pay to win, but I definitely prefer that golden name tag. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed this one. I wasn't really expecting to do coverage on this one. Let's see if anybody's left some. Oh my goodness, the comments. Okay, let's get to you guys. So Waluigi, good to see you, bud. And Derp Tank is talking. Okay, let's see. Only Soviet ship is the T-35. Yep, the Krispy Kreme. I figured I would get called out for mentioning balance. I said more balanced than they have in the past, and I think that's an easy case to make. Yamamoto, Bismarck, USS Texas, USS Missouri, USS Iowa. I know, I'm really excited to see larger craft come in more numbers, and I honestly think that Gaijin's been working on battleships for a while. I think they're just working their way up to it, and they're starting to get a feel for how they're going to balance naval forces, and I'm happy with it so far. I've enjoyed naval battles for the most part. They're more relaxing right now than typical battles. I'll have to get back on the waters sometime. Hi, baby. Okay. Guppy, can you say bye-bye? Bye. Did you guys hear that? That was pretty cute. Alright, catch you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.